Hello everyone, my name is Kai, and I am a fool in a man's shoes. I made the unfortunate decision to begin a TikTok account, one of which has gained over 10,000 followers by the time I'm uploading this. So, to honor a promise that I have made since this account's popularity began to arise, I am doing a reading of Warrior Cats Into the Wild by Aaron Hunter. And if you use the words rabid and feral in your vocabulary, chances are it was because you read this in the 3rd grade and you're gay now. So, that's what this is. It's somewhat of an ASMR because I thought that would be funnier. I'm not good at reading out loud. I have ADHD and dyslexia, so I can't promise that this isn't going to be a hot, steamy pile of shit garbage. But I do make funny faces when I read things, so if that's what you get a kick out of, boy howdy, do I have the video for you. Sorry about that. Let's begin with, oh fuck, shit, balls ass, the prologue. A half-moon glowed on smooth granite boulders, turning them silver. The silence was broken only by a ripple of water from the swift black river and the whisper of trees in the forest beyond. There was a stirring in the shadows, and from all around lithe, dark shapes crept stealthily over the rocks. Unsheathed claws glinted in the moonlight. Warry eyes flashed like amber. And then, as if on a silent signal, the creatures leapt at each other, and suddenly the rocks were alive with wrestling, screeching cats. At the center of the frenzy of fern claws, a massive dark tabby pinned a bracken-colored Tom to the ground and drew his head triumphantly. "Oh, Cart," the tabby growled. "How dare you hunt in our territory? The Sunning Rocks belong to ThunderClan." "After tonight, Tiger Claw, this will be just another part of RiverClan's hunting ground. After tonight, Tiger Claw, this will be just another RiverClan hunting ground," the bracken-colored Tom spat back. A warning owl came from ashore. "What?" "Oh, a warning yowl came from the shore, shrill and anxious. Look out! More RiverClan warriors are coming." Tiger Claw turned to see sleek, wet bodies sliding out of the water below the rocks. The drenched RiverClan warriors bounded silently up the shore and hurled themselves into battle without even stopping to shake the water off their fur. The dark tabby glared down at Oakheart. "You may swim like otters, but you and your warriors do not belong in this forest." He drew back his lips. Cats don't have lips. And showed his teeth. Oh yeah, they do. As the cat struggled beneath him. The desperate scream of a ThunderClan she-cat rose above the clamor. A wry RiverClan Tom had pinned the brown warrior flat on her belly. Now he lunged toward her neck with jaws still dripping from the swim across the river. Tiger Claw heard the cry and let go of Oakheart. With a mighty leap, he knocked the enemy warrior off the she-cat. "Quick, Mousefur, run!" he ordered before turning on the RiverClan Tom who had threatened her. Mousefur scrambled to her paws, wincing from a deep gash on her shoulder, and raced away. Behind her, Tiger Claw spat with rage as the RiverClan Tom sliced open his nose. Blood blinded him for an instant, But he lunged forward and regardless and sank his teeth into the hind leg of the enemy. The River Clan cat squealed and struggled free. Tiger Claw, the owl came from a warrior with a tail as red as fox fur. This is useless. There are too many River Clan warriors. No, Redtail, Thunder Clan will never be beaten. Tiger Claw yowled back, leaping to Redtail's side. This is our territory. Blood was welling around his broad black muzzle, and he shook his head impatiently, scattering scarlet drops onto the rocks. ThunderClan will honor your courage, Tiger Claw, but we cannot afford to lose any more of our warriors. Redtail urged. Blue Star would never expect her warriors to fight against these impossible odds. We will have another chance to avenge this defeat. He met Tiger Claw's amber-eyed gaze steadily, and then reared away and sprang onto the boulder at the edge of the trees. Retreat, ThunderClan, retreat, he yowled. At once his warriors squirmed and struggled away from their opponents. Spitting and snarling, they backed towards Redtail. For a heartbeat, the River Clan cats looked confused. Was this a battle so easily won? Then Oakheart yowled a jubilant cry. As soon as they heard him, the River Clan warriors raised their voices and joined their deputy in caterwauling their victory. Redtail looked down at his warriors. With a flick of his tail, he gave the signal to the ThunderClan cats, and the ThunderClan cats dived from the far side of the Sunning Rocks, then disappeared into the trees. Tiger Claw followed last. He hesitated at the edge of the forest and glanced back at the blood-stained battlefield. His face was grim, his eyes furious slits. Then he leapt after his clan into the silent forest. In a deserted clearing, an old gray she-cat sits alone, staring up at a clear night sky. All around her in the shadows, she could hear the breathing and stirring of sleeping cats. A small, turquoise-shelled she-cat emerged from a dark corner, her paw steps quick and soundless. The gray cat dipped her head in a greeting. "How was Mouse Fur?" she meowed. "Her wounds are deep, Blue Star," answered the turquoise shell, settling herself on the night cool grass. "But she is young and strong. She will heal quickly." "And the others?" "They will all recover too." Blue Star sighed. "We are lucky to have not lost any of our warriors this time. You are a gifted medicine cat, Spotted Leaf." She tilted her head again and studied the stars. "I am deeply troubled by tonight's defeat. ThunderClan has not been beaten in its own territory since I became leader." She murmured, "These are different times for our clan. The season of New Leaf is late. There have been fewer kits. ThunderClan needs more warriors if it's to survive." "But the year is only just beginning," Spotted Leaf pointed out calmly. "There will be more kits when Greenleaf comes." The gray cat twitched her broad shoulders. "Perhaps. But training our young to become warriors takes time. If ThunderClan is to defend its territory, it must have new warriors as soon as possible." "Are you asking StarClan for answers?" meowed Spotted Leaf gently, following Blue Star's gaze and staring up at the swath of stars glinting in the dark sky. "It is at times like this we need the words of ancient warriors to help us." "Has StarClan spoken to you?" Blue Star asked. "Not for some moons, Blue Star." Suddenly, a shooting star blazed over the treetops. Spotted Leaf's tails twitched as fur along her spine bristled. Blue Star's ears pricked, but she remained silent as Spotted Leaf continued to gaze upward. After a few moments, Spotted Leaf lowered her head and turned to Blue Star. "It was a message from StarClan," she murmured. A distant look came to her eye. "Fire alone can save our clan." "Fire?" echoed Blue Star. "But fire is feared by all the clans. How can it save us?" Spotted Leaf shook her head. "I do not know," she admitted, "but this is a message StarClan has chosen to share with me." The ThunderClan leader fixed her clear blue eyes on the medicine cat. "You have never been wrong before, Spotted Leaf," she meowed. "If StarClan has spoken, then it must be so. Fire will save our clan." Chapter 1, that was a prologue. It was very dark. Rusty could sense something was near. The young tomcat's eyes opened wide as he scanned the dense undergrowth. The place was unfamiliar, but the strange sense drew him onward, deeper into the shadows. His stomach growled, reminding him of his hunger. He opened his jaw slightly to let the warm smell of the forest reach his scent glands on the roof of his mouth. Musty odors of leaf mold mingled with the tempting aroma of small furry creatures. Suddenly, a flash of gray raced past him. Rusty stopped, still listening. It was hiding in the leaves less than 2 tail lengths away. Rusty knew it was a mouse. He could feel the rapid pulsing of its tiny heartbeat deep within his ear fur. He swallowed, stifling his rumbling stomach. Soon his hunger would be satisfied. Slowly, he lowered his body into position, crouching for his attack. He was downwind of the mouse. He knew it was not aware of him. With one final check on his prey's position, Rusty pushed back hard on his haunches and sprang, kicking up leaves on the forest floor as he rose. The mouse dived for cover, heading toward a hole in the ground, but Rusty was already on top of it. He scooped it into the air, hooking the helpless creature on his thorn-sharp claw, flinging it into a high arc onto the leaf-covered ground. The mouse landed dazed but alive. It tried to run, but Rusty snatched it up again. He tossed the mouse once more, this time a little farther away. The mouse managed to scramble a few paces before Rusty caught up with it. Suddenly a noise roared by. Rusty looked around, and as he did so, the mouse was able to pull free from his claws. When Rusty turned back, he saw it dart into the darkness among the tangled roots of trees. Angry, Rusty gave up the hunt. He spun around, his green eyes glaring, intent on searching for the noise that had cost him his kill. The sound rattled on, becoming more familiar. Rusty blinked open his eyes. The forest had disappeared. He was inside a hot and airless kitchen, curled in his bed. Moonlight filtered through the window, casting shadows on his stomach, on the smooth, hard floor. How did I read smooth as stomach? The noise The noise had been the rattle of hard, dried pellets of food as they were tripped onto his dish. Rusty had been dreaming. Lifting his head, he rested his chin on the side of his bed. His collar rubbed uncomfortably around his neck. In his dream, he had felt the fresh air rustling his soft fur where the collar usually pinched. Rusty rolled onto his back, savoring the dream for a few more moments. He could still smell mouse. It was the 3rd time since full moon he had the dream, and every time the mouse had escaped his grasp. He licked his lips. From his bed he could smell the bland odor of his food. His owners always refilled his dish before they went to bed. The dusty smell chased away the warm scent of his dream, but the hunger rumbled in his stomach, so Rusty stretched the sleep out of his limbs and padded across the floor to his dinner. The food felt dry and tasteless on his tongue. Rusty reluctantly swallowed one more mouthful. Then he turned away from the food dish and pushed his way through the cat flap, hoping that the smell of the garden would bring back the feeling from his dream. Outside, the moon was bright. It was raining lightly. Rusty stalked down the tiny garden, following the starlit gravel path, feeling the stones cold and sharp beneath his paws. He made his dirt beneath a large bush with glossy green leaves and heavy purple flowers. Their sickly sweet scent cloyed the damp air around him, and he curled his lips to drive the smell into his nostrils. Afterward, Rusty settled down on top of one of the pots in the fence that marked the limits of the garden. It was a favorite spot of his, as he could see right into the neighboring gardens as well as the dense green forest on the other side of the garden fence. The rain had stopped. Behind him, the close-cropped lawn was bathed in moonlight, but beyond his fence the woods were full of shadows. Rusty stretched his head forward to take a sniff into the damp air. His skin was warm and dry under his thick coat, but he could feel the weight of the raindrops that sparkled on his ginger fur. He heard his owners giving him one last call from the back door. If he went to them now, they would greet him with gentle words and caresses and welcome him onto their bed, where he would curl, purring warm in the crook of a bent knee. But this time Rusty ignored his owners' voices and turned his gaze back to the forest. The crisp smell of the woods had grown fresher than the rain after the rain. Suddenly the fur on his spine prickled. The fur on his spine prickled. Was something moving out there? Was something watching him? Rusty stared ahead, but it was impossible to see or smell anything in the dark, tree-scented air. He lifted his chin boldly, stood up and stretched, one paw gripping each corner of the fence pot as he straightened his legs out and arched his back. He closed his eyes and breathed in the smell of the woods once more. It seemed to promise him something, tempting him onwards into the whispering shadows. Tensing his muscles, he crouched for a moment. Then he leapt lightly down into the rough grass onto the other side of the garden fence. As he landed, the bell on his collar rang out through the still air night. "Where are you off to, Rusty?" meowed a familiar voice behind him. Rusty looked up. A young black and white cat was balancing ungracefully on the fence. "Hello, Smudge," Rusty replied. "You're not going into the woods, are you?" Smudge's amber eyes were huge. "Just for a look," Rusty promised, shifting uncomfortably. You wouldn't get me in there. It's dangerous." Smudge wrinkled his black nose with distaste. "Henry said he went into the woods once." The cat lifted his head and gestured with his nose over the rows of fence toward the garden where Henry lived. "That fat old tabby cat never went into the woods," Rusty scoffed. "He's hardly been beyond his own garden since the trip to the vet. All he wants to do is eat and sleep." "No, really, he caught a robin in there," Smudge insisted. "Well, if he did, then it was before the vet. Now he complains about birds because they disturb his dozing. Well, anyway," Smudge went on, ignoring the scorn in Rusty's mew, "Henry told me there are all sorts of dangerous animals out there. Huge wildcats who eat live rabbits for breakfast and sharpen their claws on old bones." "I'm going for a look around," Rusty meowed. "I won't stay long." "Well, don't say I didn't warn you," purred Smudge. The black and white cat turned and plunged off the fence back down to his own garden. Rusty sat down on the coarse grass beyond the garden fence. He gave his shoulder a nervous lick and wondered how much of Smudge's gossip was true. Suddenly the movements of a tiny creature caught his eye. He watched it scuttle under some brambles. Instinct made him drop into a low crouch. With one slow paw after another he drew his body forward through the undergrowth. Ears pricked, nostrils flared, eyes unblinking, he moved towards the animal. He could see it clearly now, sitting up on some barbed branches, nibbling on a large seed held between its paws. It was a mouse. Rusty rocked his haunches from side to side, preparing for leap. He held his breath in case this bell rang again. Excitement coursed through him, making his heart pound. This was even better than his dreams. Then a sudden noise of cracking twigs and scrambling leaves made him jump. The bell jingled treacherously, and the mouse darted away into the thickest tangle of the bramble bushes. Rusty stood very still and looked around. He could see the white tip of a blue bushy tail trailing through a clump of tall ferns up ahead. He smelled strong, a strange sense, definitely a meat eater, but neither cat or dog. Distracted, Rusty forgot about the mouse and watched the red tail curiously. He wanted to have a better look. All of Rusty's senses strained ahead as he prowled forward. Then he detected another noise. It came from behind, but sounded muted and distant. He swiveled his ears backward to hear it better. Paw steps, he wondered, but he kept his eyes fixed on the strange red fur up ahead and continued to creep onward. It was only when the faint rustling behind him became a loud and fast-approaching leaf crackle that Rusty realized he was in danger. The creature hit him like an explosion, and Rusty was thrown sideways into a clump of needles. Twisting and yowling, he tried to throw off the attacker that had fastened itself on his back. It was gripping at him with incredibly sharp claws. Rusty could feel spiked teeth pricking at his neck. He writhed and squirmed from whisker to tail, but he couldn't free himself. For a second he felt helpless. Then he froze. Thinking fast, he flipped onto his back. He knew instinctively how dangerous it was to expose his soft belly, but it was his only chance. If he was lucky, he was lucky. The ploy seemed to work. He heard a huff behind him as the breath was knocked out of his attacker. Thrashing fiercely, Rusty managed to wriggle free. Without looking back, he sprinted towards his house. Behind him, a rush of paw steps told Rusty his attacker was giving chase. Even though the pain from his scratches stung beneath his fur, Rusty decided he would rather turn and fight than let himself be jumped on again. He skidded to a stop, spun around, and faced his pursuer. It was another kitten, with a thick coat of shaggy gray fur, strong legs, and a broad face. In a heartbeat, Rusty smelled that it was a tom and sensed the power in the sturdy shoulders underneath his soft coat. Then the kitten crashed into Rusty at full pelt. Taken by surprise by Rusty's turnabout, it fell back in a dazed heap. The impact knocked the breath out of Rusty, and he staggered. He quickly found his footing and arched his back, puffing out his orange fur, ready to spring onto the other kitten. But his attacker simply sat up and began to lick his forepaws, all sign of aggression gone. Rusty felt strangely disappointed. Every part of him was tense, ready for battle. "Hi there, kitty pet," meowed the gray tom cheerily. "You put up quite a fight for a tame kitty." Rusty remained on tiptoe for a second, wondering whether to attack anyway. Then he remembered the strength he had felt in the kitten's paws when he pinned him to the ground. He dropped to his pads, loosened his muscles, and let his spine unbend. "And I'll fight you again if I have to," he growled. "I'm Graypaw, by the way," the gray kitten went on, ignoring Rusty's threat. "I'm training to be a ThunderClan warrior." Rusty remained silent. He didn't understand that this gray whatsits was meowing about, but he sensed the threat had passed. He hid his confusion by leaning down to lick his ruffled chest. "What's a kitty pet like you doing in the woods? Don't you know it's dangerous?" asked Graypaw. "If you're the most dangerous thing in the woods has to offer, I think I can handle it," Rusty bluffed. Graypaw looked up at him for a moment, narrowing his big yellow eyes. Oh, I'm far from the most dangerous. If I were even half a warrior, I'd have given an intruder like you some real wounds to think about. Rusty felt a thrill of fear at these ominous words. What did this cat mean by intruder? Anyway, meowed Graypaw, using his sharp teeth to tug at a clump of grass from between his claws. I didn't think it was worth hurting you. You're obviously not from one of the other clans. Other clans? Rusty echoed, confused. Graypaw let out an impatient hiss. You must have heard of 4 warrior clans that hunt around here. I belong to ThunderClan. The other clans are always trying to steal prey from our territory, especially ShadowClan. They're so fierce that they would have ripped you to shreds, no questions asked. Graypaw paused and spit angrily as he continued. They come to take prey that is rightfully ours. It's the job of the ThunderClan warriors to keep them from out of our territory. When I've finished my training, I'll be so dangerous, I'll have the other clans shaking in their flea-bitten skins. They won't dare come near us then. Rusty narrowed his eyes. This must be one of the wildcats Smudge had warned him about, living rough in the woods, hunting and fighting each other, every last scrap of food. Yet Rusty didn't feel scared. In fact, it was hard not to admire the confidence of the kitten. So you're not a warrior yet? He asked. Why? Did you think I was? Graypaw purred proudly. Then he shook his wide, furry head. I won't be a real warrior for ages. I have to go through the training first. Kids have to be 6 moons old before they begin training. Tonight is my first night as an apprentice. Why don't you find yourself an owner with a nice cozy house instead? Your life would be much easier, Rusty meowed. There are plenty of housefolk who take in a kitten like you. All you have to do is sit where they can see you and look hungry for a couple days, and they'd feed me pellets that look like rabbit droppings and soft slop, Graypaw interrupted. No way! I can't think of anything worse than being a kitty pet. They're nothing but 2-legged toys, eating stuff that doesn't look like food, making dirt in a box of gravel, sticking their noses outside only when the 2 legs allow them. That's no life. Out here it's wild. Out here it's wild, and it's free. We come and we go as we please. He finished his speech with a proud spit and meowed mischievously. Until you've tasted a fresh-killed mouse, you haven't lived. Have you ever tasted mouse? No, Rusty admitted, a little defensively. Not yet. I guess you'll never understand, Graypaw sighed. You weren't born wild. It makes a big difference. You need to be born with warrior blood in your veins, or the feel of the wind in your whiskers. Kitties born into 2-legged nests could never feel the same way. Rusty remembered the way he had felt in his dream. That's not true, he meowed indignantly. Graypaw did not reply. He simply stiffened mid-lick, one paw raised, and sniffed the air. I smell cats from my clan, he hissed. You should go. They won't be pleased to find you hunting in our territory. Rusty looked around, wondering how Graypaw knew any cats were approaching. He couldn't smell anything different on the leaf-scented breeze, but his fur stood on end at the note of urgency in Graypaw's voice. Quick! Hissed Graypaw again. Run! Rusty prepared to spring into the bushes, not knowing which way was a safe place to jump. He was too late. A voice meowed behind him, firm and menacing. What's going on here? Rusty turned to see a large gray she-cat strolling majestically out of the undergrowth. She was magnificent. White hairs streaked her muzzle, an ugly scar parted the fur across her shoulders, but her smooth gray coat shone like silver in the moonlight. Blue Star! Beside Rusty, Graypaw crouched down and narrowed his eyes. He crouched even lower when a second cat, a handsome golden tabby, followed the gray cat into the clearing. You shouldn't be so near 2-legged place, Graypaw, growled the golden tabby angrily, narrowing his green eyes. I know, Lionheart. I'm sorry, Great Paw looked down at his paws. Rusty copied Grey Paw and crouched low to the forest floor, his ears twitching nervously. These cats had an air of strength he had never seen in in any of his garden friends. Maybe what Smudge had warned him about was true. "Who is this?" asked the she-cat. "Who is this?" asked the she-cat. Rusty flinched and turned his gaze over on him. Rusty flinched as she turned her gaze on him. Her piercing blue eyes made him feel even more vulnerable. "He's no threat," mewed Grey Paw quickly. "He's not another clan warrior, just a two-leg pet beyond our territory." Just a two-leg pet. The words inflamed Rusty, but he held his tongue. The warning look in Blue Star's eyes told him she had observed the anger in his, and he looked away. "This is Blue Star. She's leader of my clan," Grey Paw hissed to Rusty under his breath. "And Lionheart. He's my mentor, which means he's training me to be a warrior." "Thank you for our introductions, Grey Paw," meowed Lionheart coolly. Blue Star was still staring at Rusty. "You fight well for a two-leg pet," she meowed. Rusty and Grey Paw exchanged confused glances. How could she know? "We have been watching you both," Blue Star went on, as if she had read their thoughts. "We wondered how you would deal with an intruder, Grey Paw. You attacked him bravely." Grey Paw looked pleased at Blue Star's praise. "Sit up now, both of you." Blue Star looked at Rusty. "You too, kitty pet." He sat up immediately and held Blue Star's gaze evenly as she addressed him. "You reacted well to the attack, kitty pet. Grey Paw is stronger than you, but you used your wits to defend yourself, and you turned to face him when he chased you. I've not seen a kitty pet do that before." Rusty managed to nod his thanks, taken aback by such unexpected praise. Her next words surprised him even more. "I've been wondering how you would perform out here, beyond the two-leg place. You patrolled this border frequently, so I often see you sitting on your boundary, staring out into the forest. And now, at last, you have dared to place your paws here." Blue Star stared at Rusty thoughtfully. "You do seem to have a natural hunting ability. Sharp eyes. You would have caught that mouse if you hadn't hesitated so long." Really?" Rusty stammered. Lionheart spoke now. His deep meow was respectful but insistent. "Blue Star, this is a kitty pet. He should not be hunting in ThunderClan territory. Send him home to his two legs." Rusty prickled at Lionheart's dismissive words. "Send me home?" he mewed impatiently. Blue Star's words had made him glow with pride. She had noticed him. She had been impressed by him. "But I've only come out here to hunt for a mouse or two. I'm sure there's enough to go around." Blue Star had turned her head to acknowledge Lionheart's word. Now her gaze snapped back to Rusty. Her blue eyes were blazing with anger. "There is never enough to go around," she spat. "If you didn't live such a soft, overfed life, you would know that." Rusty was confused by Blue Star's sudden rage, but one glance at the horrified look on Grey Paw's face was enough to tell him he had spoken too freely. Lionheart stepped to his leader's side. Both warriors loomed over him now. Rusty looked into Blue Star's threatening stare and his pride dissolved. There were no cozy fireside cats. These were no cozy fireside cats he was dealing with. They were mean, hungry cats who were probably going to finish what Grey Paw started. And that's the prologue in Chapter 1 of Warrior Cats into the Wild. I hope you enjoyed. I know I probably didn't read as coherently as needed to understand, but that was something. Thank you for your support. If you're following my stupid little TikTok account, or if you just clicked on this because you, because that's the mood of the night. I appreciate it endlessly, and stay freaky.